My so-called near-death experience is something I have never really talked about with anybody else. Despite this, I've just begun sharing my messages and observations with a wider audience. One of the spirits spoke to me not too long ago and said, "You have been here, you understand." Even though the event seemed so personal to me, it had an effect on the individuals I care about and the people who are closest to me. I have just celebrated my 60th birthday, which means that it has been 23 years since the event. A birthday that was significant in so many different ways. As a result of my retirement, which occurred 2 years ago, I am no longer hindered in my thinking by factors such as distraction, busyness, or being weary from work-related activities. Since I was in my early 22nd, I'd been seeing to either a psychiatrist or a cognitive therapist on a regular basis. In this case, the symptoms included feeling nervous and sad, as well as having panic episodes. My concentration had been on my work, and it served as a welcome diversion from me. It wasn't until I was in my early 30s, 10 years later, that it was suggested to me that I needed to own the way that I felt as a result of never discussing a series of traumatic events that occurred between the ages of 10 and 18. This was a significant turning point in my life because it allowed me to begin the process of healing from those experiences. I didn't want to go back through those experiences, but I knew that I had to in order to make sense of what had happened to me and go on with my life. My depression was at its worst when I was in my mid-30s. I was told that I suffer from ongoing PTSD. There were instances when I was cooped up in my bedroom and curled up sleeping. Soon enough, I put a string of ideas into motion in order to free myself from the terrible depressed fatigue and the depleted sense of self-worth I had been experiencing. I received the impression that I contributed very little to anyone's success. Suicide attempt. After sleeping for 24 hours, I awoke in a medical ward filled with elderly guys, many of whom were very close to passing away. I didn't comprehend. I was brimming with vitality and prepared to take action. I was confronted by an angry individual who then walked out. And by 11 o'clock that morning, I was already checked into a private mental institution. I was released from the hospital after 4 days. And then I started a new work after another week had passed. Within the span of those 24 hours, I had a brush with mortality that I will never forget. I remember very vividly being outside of my body, being surrounded by beautiful mystical light, and then having a dialogue with 3 different persons. The other was my grandfather's mother's mother. It was obvious that I was supposed to go back to my body. The result was the same as if I had been psychologically purified. I had insight and perspective, and my energy levels were over the roof. Regarding the consequences of this encounter, I have never spoken publicly about them. Perhaps it was a mistake because my life had an effect on my wife, our 4 children, and the rest of the family. Soon after that, I got a divorce. Soon, I would be living by myself. I had just started a new job, and my emotions were all over the place. I was confused as to why I was in the position that I was in. I did not question the choices that were made for me. I had a gut feeling that they were correct. The mentally disturbed abuse victim was known to my family, and we even lived with her. The moment has come for the breeze to blow about all of us. My near-death experience led me to believe that I was able to meet myself head-on with the assistance of spirit. It was up to me whether or not I wanted to go back home. I made the decision to come back so that I could do what I needed to do as a person. In the course of this existence, both what was in front of me and what was behind me were clearly visible to me, a realization that put me on the right track. The truth resided within me all along. My capacity for intuitive understanding increased more than anything else I've ever come across. My days now often include psychic occurrences, intensely desiring to live a life that is uncomplicated, creative, and respectful. A more refined appreciation for aesthetics. I rejected the prior boundaries that had been placed on my life and became less competitive as a result, less anxious, more impartial, and more distant from the situation. Quite inquisitive. I give off a more detached vibe, still more welcoming of other people without passing judgment on them. These days, time seems to effortlessly flow, and I find myself living more in the present. When I think about the future, I try to keep in mind a much broader context, a distinction that hasn't always been easy to make between my current life and my previous one. Forgiveness became a must for me to advance, and as a result, gone are the days when I was angry and miserable. A profound hunger for knowledge about mystical and philosophical ideas. I am aware that I am more than the sum of my physical parts, and I welcome both the here and now and whatever lies beyond. The need for inventiveness became essential. Exceptional sensitivity to both light and sound, as well as to big gatherings. Attitude shifts. I've altered my outlook on health and recovery, job, income, and interpersonal relationships as a result of these shifts. Lifestyle that is both more spiritually focused and more physically active. The unceasing fixation on the vastness and blueness of the sky above, as well as the evenings in which the moon appears to communicate with us. Now, the after effects of NDEs intrigue me, as does the progression of our society as a whole.